Hello, everyone. Welcome to It's Sybil. I am Sybil Wilkes. A different group of people here on this Thursday, perhaps just a bit. Coy Malone is joining us for an interview we're going to do a little bit later with attorney Lee Merritt. And Yolanda Starks White is here. Hello, ladies.
Hi,
Hey,
Sybil.
hey,
How are you?
doing good.
Are you?
Yeah.
Okay. So happy it's Thursday.
Yes, and almost Friday. It's Friday Eve.
It is Friday Eve,
Mhm.
absolutely.
Mhm.
And we are awaiting Attorney Lee Merritt to talk about a story that Coy gave us on Monday and get an update on that story, as well as talk about some other things that are in the newsletter. Um, Coy, you have plans for the weekend?
What do I have coming up this weekend? I think I'm going to be stopping by a high school homecoming with my car club. It's going to be a lot of local car clubs that are going to be riding in the parade for the high school's homecoming at, I think, Stevenson High School this weekend. And
Is that your high
something else.
school?
No, it's not. It's actually my rival high school.
Oh, okay.
Isn't that something?
Will you be allowed, since it's a rival, will you be allowed to participate?
I know, right? I won't tell them before I get there.
And what does that look like when you guys when your car club shows up? Do you guys park and then they get to go ooh and ah? Are you a part of the homecoming parade? What does that entail?
Yeah, a little bit of both. So we do park, and a lot of people have their cars on displays with their lights and the different, paint jobs they have, sound systems, and then we line up in the parade after the high school band, football team, cheerleaders, and what have you. I think we're like the tail end of the parade.
Got it. So this could be quite the day long event. Seems
Yeah,
like.
well, not too long because now the parade has been condensed to just like the street in front of the school. So they
Oh,
start in the school's parking
yeah.
lot and then they go kind of through the parking lot out to the front and then they
I
loop
don't
back
know if
around in
I've
front of the
ever heard of
school.
a parade homecoming for a high school. It's that big of a deal?
Really?
A
I guess
parade.
so.
Yeah.
So Sybil, your experience is you parade where?
Well, for us, it was through the athletic field and through the neighborhood, and
Through the
or actually through
neighborhood.
the neighborhood, and then onto the athletic field. And even in my old neighborhood, they would go down the main drag of the city, and the kids and the band, like you say, Coy, and the cheerleaders and the football players, and they all go through
Down
the.
Main Street. So how many house schools do they allow to do that? Because I would think that that would be a nuisance to the community.
Well,
Traffic.
it's the high school in the immediate community, or in your community, in your immediate community is where you go. So they don't go through the whole town, but they go through the streets that are closest to the high school.
Okay.
Yeah, and I mean they put up signs and they say, homecoming is coming. Don't forget, we're going to have the parade this day at this time, and the streets will be blocked off.
That would frustrate me.
Well, it's not as if they don't give you a warning, and it's kind of cute to see the kids, do it.
Okay. Well, other people too. Boy, I have lived an interesting life.
Arthuretta Wilson on Facebook. Yes, we had homecoming parades in the 70s in Jersey. There you go.
Yeah.
Pamela Sullivan on Facebook. In my area, the schools parade all through the town. Yep.
Wow. Okay.
I think it really depends on the budget too. Like last year, they did the
Right.
same thing where they had it parade in front of the school just because of the budget. So I know they have to enlist like the city police or whatever, or the
Right.
county police, and
Permit.
that costs a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah. Permits and yeah.
Hmm. So
Well,
last year there was no permit.
oops. Okay.
Yeah, so in front of the school.
Shh.
Yeah, your secret's safe with us, illegal high school. So let's move to the What You Need to Know newsletter. This is our Monday through Friday effort to super serve the African American community with the stories that we do. And it may not always be about a Black person, but it is something that relates to the African American community. Um, let's start with today is normally, I was remiss in mentioning her. This is normally Aprillette's Day, and Aprillette is our mental health and wellness contributor. And a reminder that September is Suicide Awareness Month, and the American Foundation of Suicide Prevention is working to bring mental health equity to Black people. And in her effort to help out her good friend Justice, our friend Justice wrote the article about this. And within the Black community, they've had a narrative that we don't die by suicide, that we're resilient people who have survived slavery and all that comes along with that. And what that suicide was really a white problem. This, according to the Vice President for Health Equity at the American Foundation for Suicide Prevention. And so take a look at that story. Justice did a really great job on that, but take a look at it, and it is something that we need to talk about as well, and understand that it is not just a white problem. Suicide affects Black folks of all ages and age ranges, as we've seen, and it is something that we just can't put off to the side, saying, "Oh, we're tougher than this," because life is not easy for many of us. And
Because I hear there's an uptick in suicide for the youth in
yep,
our community.
yep, absolutely right. Absolutely right. And so we invite people to take a look at this and get an idea of how we can avoid this. In early 2024, they launched a new initiative to support mental health in Black communities. Listening, Empathy, Trust, and Support, or LETS, Saves Lives. An introduction to suicide prevention for Black and African American communities is a free presentation aimed at fostering dialogue around mental health and providing suicide prevention resources. According to the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, the suicide rates for Black youth, as you were mentioning, Yolanda, ages 10 to 24, increased nearly 37%
That's what
from
I heard.
2018 to 21.
Right.
And it was also the third leading cause of death in Black Americans ages 20 to 24 in 2020. Um, it
Oh
is
my goodness.
mental health challenges, and suicide does not discriminate. Renita Bland on Facebook, a 24-year-old from my hometown, committed suicide on Tuesday.
Hmm.
Oh, Renita, I'm so sorry. And that's what we're trying to prevent. Have the conversation and to get
Yeah.
people help.
Yeah.
Just
Thanks, Justice. Thank you for that. That was good. Thank you.
very good, very good. And one of the stories that I did this week, and I was very glad to do it. I love to do these stories about the economy and how it can help us. And this was big because the interest rates have been so high over the last few years as they have tried to bring down inflation. They've done a pretty good job of it, but at our expense. And by our expense, I mean people who borrow money to buy a house, borrow money from a credit card company in order to purchase uh, uh, a large piece of equipment or something that you want for your home or your business, as well as if you're looking to buy a car. The interest rates are very high. And so the Federal Reserve, for the first time in years, lowered the interest rate by a half a point. And it doesn't sound like a lot, but every little bit helps.
Does it?
And
What is? I'm not that knowledgeable of how that works, but that just seems very, very small. Is it?
it looks small, but depending on what the decision is made by companies, such as your banks, on how much lower they're going to uh, decrease the interest rate for a home loan.
Mm-hmm.
Back in the day, Yolanda, home loans were like 3%, and then
Right.
they,
I got mine for 2.99, but
right.
that was, but that wasn't. It was like maybe 15 years ago, maybe 15 years.
Well, in that 15 years, things have changed,
Right.
and the
So now it's like 7.
no,
So
well,
it's like double.
it's down to 7. It had been higher
Okay.
for a lot
But
of
I'm
people.
just saying, if it's 7 and it went to 6.5, I'm just wondering
No,
how
no, no,
much.
no, no, no. It doesn't go based upon that half a point. It is more based upon what the bank wants to lower it to.
Oh, okay.
And
Okay.
so the bank is involved in your home loan, in a loan for a car, as well as the credit cards that they distribute. And so and depending upon your credit rating as well, depends on how low you can get those interest rates. And so the banks are definitely involved in all of this. And
Right.
these are all things that we come to accept or come to have in our lives as a part of adulthood.
Right.
And people are starting to get back to work. And that means that they're going to want to buy homes, and the homes that they are buying are very expensive for the most part, because the all of the supplies to build homes are expensive.
Right.
And then you have that on top of an increasing credit rate, or interest rate. That makes a big difference on how people are able to advance in their lives.
Right.
And your car breaks down, and they say nope, or you have an accident, and they say, we're going to total your car. You're like, well, I got to go out and get a new car, and you get out there and go, how much are you charging in interest for this? And so all of these things, and so just wanted people to know, and it's especially important as we are getting close to the election, and there are concerns about how people were better off 4 years ago than they are now, and things are starting to come back as a result of these changes that are being made, the decision made by the Federal Reserve to lower the interest rate.
Gotcha.
Coy, you are a consumer, and I don't know what your situation is in terms of credit cards, or buying a car, or looking to buy a home. And that's a part of what Vice President Kamala Harris is saying. We're going to give people money if they're going to be buying their first home. We're going to help with people with child tax credits and child care and what have you. All of these things are an effort to get people's votes, obviously, but also to help the economy. Is this going to affect you?
I mean, it better. I hope so. If it makes it a lot better for me. The housing market right now is ridiculous. I won't even look at buying a house right now. A lot of people that I'm seeing that do have homes, we're pretty much paying the same amount in rent or mortgage. It's pretty much the same amount. And the amount of home that they're getting for that mortgage is small. It's not what it used to be. I'm seeing a lot more townhouses these days, as opposed to like just a single home with its own yard and its own fence and its own plot. I don't want to go into a home like that. I don't. And it just seems like that's what the options are. Houses are ridiculously high. I saw one in my neighborhood in the year 2004. It was about 65,000, maybe 75,000. And now in the year 2024, it is $675,000. So that's in the city of Atlanta. And these are, the homes are okay, but it's not like, the big ornate homes that everybody thought they would move down to the South, and it's cheaper down here.
Construction.
Right. So it's very, very concerning for me that now, in order to buy a home that is a reasonable price, it would have to be at least 2 hours outside the city. And who wants to make that kind of commute?
And that's the other thing. So then you have to get a better car that's going to get you back and forth into the city. And what kind of interest rate are you going to be paying on that?
Or a work from home job. So, that just goes to show.
If you can do that.
Right.
Okay, right. Coy, it is Black Voters Matter Thursday. And you wrote a story in the newsletter today about Arizona voters who will decide if tens of thousands of people are ineligible to vote in the upcoming presidential election. What's that about?
Yeah, so I just came across this story. I'm surprised I didn't see a lot more about this. And there is a good number of people that may be disqualified from voting in the presidential election. Nearly 100,000 people can be disqualified from voting in state and local races just weeks before the early ballots are mailed to voters on October 9th. How did this happen? Right. So there was a 2004 state law that required Arizona voters to provide proof of citizenship in order to register to vote in state and local elections. And although those who didn't provide the proof could still register to vote for federal offices, they could use a federal only form. So what happened was their voter registration system pulls from the state driver's license database as proof of citizenship. And they found that some people were incorrectly shown to have provided proof of citizenship when the only thing they did was apply for a driver's license. So that's about 98,000 people out of the 4.1 million registered voters who got a license before October 1st 1996, that's the amount of people that are affected. So the recorder's office discovered this error while trying to verify citizenship for one person that had a driver's license that was pre 1996. So this sent them on a rabbit hole, in a sense, to say, hey, let's check out everybody else. And that discovery led to reveal about 98,000 more people across the state who have not provided documentation required for a full ballot under the state's law. So now that this has happened, there has been an emergency petition filed with the Arizona Supreme Court to decide the fate of the voters. So there are two people involved in this. We have Maricopa County Recorder, Stephen Richer, who is a Republican, and he's defended the county's elections against people and critics like former President Donald Trump. And he argued that the affected registrants should only be allowed to vote in federal elections unless they provide proof of citizenship by election day. And then we also have another person who is a part of the petition filing, and he is a Democrat. I'm looking for his name right now in the article. However, he's a Democrat, and he feels that everyone should be allowed to vote on the full ballot this year. So that decision hasn't been made as of yet. And this is the Arizona Secretary of State, Adrian Fontes, who is a Democrat who believes that everybody should be allowed to vote on the full ballot this year, I guess, until they make a decision. So I don't have any word on when this court date is that will make the decision, but we're very, very, very close to the elections. And Arizona is a swing state. It's one of the states that could go either way depending on the outcome of the votes.
And the lead
98,000
changes as the days go on and get
Yes.
closer.
But 98,000 people is significant.
This is what I don't understand. Yeah, Arizona is a swing state, but it tends to vote generally more Republican, right?
For the most part.
Yeah, for the most part. And so my thing is,
historically, I should say.
Right.
Okay.
But wouldn't this hurt the Republicans? Wouldn't they try to figure this out because they need as much as they can get?
Well, you know what? This is really interesting because the Speaker of the House is trying to pass a budget to keep the government running. Right. And one of the things that he has put in this bill is that American citizens should be able to vote. People who are and it's like so it's saying that out of the country, people born out of the country or who are still not full American citizens should not be able to vote. And they're like, well, that's the law,
right,
Mr. Genius. So it's really curious. They're trying to be those that are standing in the way of progress, and yet trying to make a statement, and the statement is superfluous. It doesn't make any sense. So what's your point, Mr. Speaker? What's your point, Republicans in Arizona? We know that you are anti-immigrant. We know that you don't want people coming across the border. You want to penalize people, and perhaps you want to penalize the Democrats who are in favor of opening the border a little bit more to allow people into this country legally. That's why we're going through it with the Haitians in Ohio.
But so when we talk about immigrants, we're not just talking about like from Mexico for some reason. And I understand the Haitians, but I'll just automatically go there. But we know that what Michael Stalwart let us know, if Hispanics tend to be more Republican than Democrats.
Well, it depends because historically, once again, Cubans and Mexicans, or Cubans, I will say, are more Republican oriented. Depending on the candidate and the politics of that candidate, it's been shown that Vice President Harris is leading a larger group of Mexicans and some Cubans, not all, but in Florida, people are moving in the direction because they don't like the governor and they don't like the things that Donald Trump is talking about these days. So it depends. Hispanics, it depends if they're Mexican, it depends if they're Cuban, and most certainly there's more than just Hispanics coming
Oh,
across.
right. Yeah, right. Yeah, that was ignorant on my part to just
No.
relegate it to Hispanics. But I'm just, because I'm here in Texas, we just have so many Mexicans, and I know that here in Texas, a lot of them are Republican.
Yeah.
And having conversations with them, Coy, it's just very interesting having the conversation with them, and how one of their main issues is immigration as well. And it's like, okay.
Hmm.
So anyway,
Here we are. We're expecting Attorney Lee Merritt. Maybe something has come up. We're hoping to get an update on the Javon McGee case that Coy covered earlier. Coy, I'd
I'm
ask you.
sorry. Before you move on, I asked Michael Stallworth, and he was kind enough. Can we share it right quick?
Sure. I disagree, Michael. Michael Stallworth on Facebook says Latinos in Arizona are Democratic. Cubans, Venezuelans, and Florida are historically Republican because of anti-communism sentiments. I will agree with that, but I don't agree that Latinos in Arizona are more Democratic. They are moving in that direction, because Arizona is still more of a border state. It's not more, it is a border state, and because some of the things that have come up in recent years with Republicans, I would agree. Barbara Ferguson said, I live in Phoenix and more Hispanics are Republican. Yeah. That, I mean, so it's 6 of one, half dozen of the other. Maybe I don't know, Barbara. Maybe the Republican Hispanics are all in Phoenix. I don't know, but I do know that historically, that Hispanics have been more Republican in Arizona, and which lends to the long lineage of Arizona Republicans like John McCain and even Goldwater. And I don't know how much Goldwater had in terms of Hispanic support, but they but the leadership in Arizona, the governor is now a Democrat, and so things are changing over. But historically, I would agree with Barbara that the Hispanics are more Republican, and Florida's a different animal altogether.
Thank you for allowing me.
Coy, are you going to stick around with us in hopes that Lee Merritt comes around? Because we have
Yeah.
a question of the day if you'd like to participate. And I'm not sure if this is a good question for you, but I think it is for most people who don't have the restricted diet that you have. Okay, so my question is, what's your favorite fast food joint? And
I have one.
Oh, good. Okay, good, great. And I also want to give the history of some of these fast food places. How did they come about? Where did they start? And things like that. I was thinking about this yesterday because I got sucked in by a Chipotle advertisement. And so I've been thinking about this for the last couple of days. I wanted to go try their brisket because it looks really tasty. And I'm not a brisket fan, but it looked good.
So advertising work.
It does work sometimes, yeah. So I went to Chipotle and I asked Yolanda if she wanted something. She goes, no, Chipotle's too healthy for me. But that Buffalo Wild Wings is right down a couple of doors down. I will take some of that. So, and she'd never been to Buffalo Wild Wings before.
And it was awful.
I'm not laughing at you. I'm just laughing at your interpretation right now. So, Coy, what's your favorite fast food joint?
My favorite fast food joint is, in fact, Chipotle.
Oh.
I have an addiction. I get the burrito bowl. Sometimes I get the salad, which is pretty much the same as a burrito bowl.
Right.
And I get the sofritas because they have a vegan protein sofritas. And I love pintos. I love brown rice. I love a lot of lettuce. Very, very simple. Get that extra lettuce.
The burrito bowl, what makes it a burrito bowl if it's a bowl?
And should be a salad.
I know, right? I guess it's the contents of the burrito, but no shell.
Oh, okay.
A burrito bowl with no burrito.
Yeah, that's why I'm like, I don't know why I call it that. They should call it a Chipotle bowl. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Because maybe I should have gotten you the burrito, Yolanda, with just the meat. Nah, you're okay.
It's good.
Mainly, I don't like their beans.
Oh, you could have gotten it without the beans. Because I mean,
Even
they
their
fix
black
it.
beans?
They fix it.
Yeah, the black beans
like
is what
beans.
I didn't like.
Get the pintos.
I don't
You
like
like
pinto beans.
you
Get
like
no
brown
beans.
beans?
I know I'm being difficult, Sybil.
Oh, that was funny. Was
No,
that
it wasn't funny. It was just me being obstinate.
That's so unlike you.
Maybe something is rubbing off. Huh,
Huh.
Coy?
Okay, well, thanks for joining us in for Yolanda and Coy's last show today, ladies and gentlemen.
Dang. See y'all.
Oh,
It's been nice working with you all.
all right. Here we got some questions.
Okay. Renita Bland on Facebook. I get the burrito bowl at Moe's, and they give free chips and salsa. I've never been to Moe's, but I like
forgot
that
about
idea.
That's
Moe's
a
is
down
more
here
on the
thing.
East Coast, right? We don't
That's
have
down-
Moe's.
We have
Where's
Moe's.
yours?
Georgia.
Oh, Georgia. Okay.
That's where it's from.
Yeah, Georgia.
I don't really like Moe's though.
Why don't you like Moe's?
I don't like the flavor. It ain't.
Flavor doesn't work for you?
Not really. Not for me.
Okay.
I think they have like more of an orange flavor, like citrus orange.
What has the orange flavor?
They're proteins. At Moe's.
Oh, got it. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yolanda, Judy Douglas on Facebook. Any place with a great salad bar? Me too. Like Ruby Tuesdays. We don't have Ruby Tuesdays here, but I love a great salad bar, and because I could eat soup and salad. I'm a cheap date for the most part, unless Yolanda is buying, and then I will go for something a little bit more.
I like Jason's Deli too. Ooh.
Jason's Deli. Yeah.
What
I
do
like
you get
I like their gumbo.
Because they got a lot to pick from.
Yeah, and they have gluten-free bread, so I can eat that. And when I want to by chance have some type of meat, I can eat turkey. So yeah, but I can make a vegan sandwich too. I love their salads.
Nice.
I'm not a bread person so much as
the great Lee Merritt has arrived.
Oh, good. Okay. All right.
Okay, let's do it.
Hey, I'm so sorry.
Hello.
How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Not too bad. I apologize. I was having device issues, but it's good to be on.
No worries. I know business, how business is for you. I wanted to thank you first of all for joining us, and we have included Coy, who initially brought the story to our newsletter about Javon McGee, and talk about it. And now you were recently hired by Javon's family in Chicago or elsewhere to investigate this case.
His mom and dad are based out of Chicago. I recently met them just yesterday down in North Carolina, Henderson, North Carolina. He was retained by the family.
So, and you told me in our conversation that there was some sort of press conference yesterday?
Yes, ma'am. After we had a chance to meet with the Vance County Sheriff's Department, we had a chance to review all the evidence that they've gathered to this point, and that included several videos of Javon on the day that he died. We spoke with some witness and that spoke with Javon. We reviewed some other records from his computer, helped get them gain access to his phone records, etc. And we did all that ahead of our press conference yesterday around noon.
And so and Coy, feel free to jump in. What was the outcome of what you?
Hey, Sybil, can you for those of us?
That's what I was going to ask Coy to give us a little bit of background. Okay. Yeah, Coy, if you could review the story that you brought to us and how you found it, and it was as a result of a TikTok post, right?
Yes, this is a result of TikTok and a mixture of Instagram. A lot of different reposts of the TikTok video with someone who said they were Javon McGee's cousin. Javon McGee is a 21-year-old black man from Chicago, Illinois, who was found dead with a rope around his neck in Henderson, North Carolina. He is a truck driver. So there's a lot of circumstances that just kind of were very, very out of place. A lot of people on social media are calling this a lynching. I myself also am calling this a lynching. However, Vance County Police Department Sheriff's Office is saying that it's not a lynching. They conducted an investigation, and they're saying on the morning of September 11th, the sheriff's office was dispatched after finding a possible suicide, according to a warrant. They found a man sitting at a base of a tree with a rope wrapped around his neck. And according to their investigation, they're saying that there was no signs of visible trauma or any struggle. So there was also paper wrapping with a blue rope found near him, a Walmart bag, and unopened wraps like the tobacco wraps or whatever that you use for smoking. There's no identification found. So a detective went to a Walmart to find out that this young man had used a self-checkout and purchased a rope on September 10th at 6:10 p.m. There's video surveillance of him at the Walmart wearing the same clothing that he had on when he was found. There's also surveillance videos showing McGee at a Hampton Inn and at a smoke shop where he purchased the tobacco product, and he was alone. And then there was also surveillance video showing him walking alone with the white bag toward the direction of where his body was found, which was not far from where his semi truck was parked. So the TikTok user's name is Scotty Primpin. She said that McGee is her cousin, and the family does not believe that they don't believe the investigation findings. And a lot of social media users also called this a lynching. So since then, the family has hired civil rights attorneys Harry Daniels and also attorney Lee Merritt, who's joining us today to find out what's going on. And I have a theory as well. I didn't get a chance to post that.
Of course you do.
I always have a theory. I have a theory. So I didn't get a chance to post that in my story. I ran out of word count. However, what I believe happened is I don't think it's uncommon for truck drivers to purchase ropes if chains or anything like that, straps aren't available. This is a very, very small town. He's unfamiliar with this place. You're not allowed to smoke inside of hotels. I believe, just my theory, because he was purchasing blunt wraps, we know what he was buying. You can't smoke that in a hotel. He's not going to smoke it near the hotel. He's not going to smoke it inside the cab of his truck because you can get in trouble for that. And then there's cameras around for that and they could be tracked. So I believe that he walked to a place that was near his truck, but not too far away, so he can find his way back to the hotel where he could smoke without being bothered. Whoever came across him knew that he was by himself, knew that they could get away with whatever they did. They wrapped the rope around his neck, pulled it around the tree trunk, and pulled it until he expired, and then left.
What do you think, Attorney Merritt? How about Attorney Coy Malone here?
Well, what I appreciate about what Coy did was she took her time to analyze all the facts that surrounded the circumstance and make some reasonable inferences. This is really where this case began to go off the rails from the beginning. It's how the Vance County Sheriff responded to the scene that he discovered. September 11th, Davion entered Henderson County. He dropped off a load. We know that he was healthy, that he had no history of depression, that he had no articulated suicidal ideations, and he had things to look forward to. He had just paid his truck off. He had just paid for a new car. He had just paid for his CDL license, and he was proud of the work that he was doing and had some plans with friends in Houston after his time in Henderson. Without explanation, after entering Henderson County within 11 hours before he reached his next destination, he was found hanging from a tree. And when
I'm sorry, he was found what?
Hanging from a tree.
Oh, okay.
As Coy pointed out, he first stopped at a hotel, and we have him on camera stopping by the hotel. He looked for a room. The hotel had no vacancies. So he drove his truck near where the drop off, the Walmart office or the Walmart depot where he dropped his load off. A lot of trucks gathered there. Again, for someone who may have been considering suicide, according to the sheriff's only theory of the case, that's not typically what you do. You don't go to the most crowded area in the region, an area where truckers are often known to sleep. It is, of course, not uncommon for truckers to go into that very same Walmart and purchase rope. Truckers and ropes go hand in hand. They tie down their load. They help secure access to doors. That universal keys are available to other truckers, so they tie them down commonly. So it was not at all bizarre for us to see him purchasing a rope, but it does appear to be that same rope that was found wrapped around first a nearby tree to that office depot, wrapped around the tree branch about 17 times. And 11 times we found it wrapped around his neck. That's part of the evidence that we saw yesterday. And it was a tree that he would have had to be hauled up or that he would have had to climb. And there would have been telltale evidence of him climbing the tree on his clothes, none of it which was presented to the family. So what we requested and what we believe we started yesterday was we requested that the sheriff's office take a moment and review the totality of the evidence. And the most disturbing thing, and this is what I spoke to the media about yesterday, was that the sheriff of Vance County seemed more concerned about responding to TikTok and other viral messages and how it made him appear than he was at doing his job. Regardless of what happened, someone's life was lost in his county. Right. He had a legal obligation to sue the evidence and provide answers to the family. And he seemed really overwhelmed with the with maybe criticism that he was receiving online that he thought was untrue. And instead of pursuing his responsibilities to the family, he prioritized protecting his name and doubling down on his conclusion that this was a suicide.
Mm-hmm. From the discussion that you had, it looks like it's going to, and this is my amateur just assumption here. Is it going to take a lot of work on your part to perhaps find other witnesses, people to convince them to come forward about their engagements with him and interactions before all of this happened? Because I've worked in North Carolina. I know not everyone is nice and kind like Michael Jordan. Okay, I know that there's some bad seeds everywhere. Will there possibly be any kind of are you looking for any evidence of interactions he had with some not so nice people?
Well, the family is relieved that although the case is being led by the Vance County Sheriff's Department, it's also part of the SBI, the State Bureau of Investigation, who is performing a parallel investigation under the direction of the Office of Attorney General. Those individuals my office has had a chance to work with. We work closely with the DOJ on other cases involving civil rights in the region. And we trust that their investigation, we are relieved that the initial investigation will have the additional supervision of those superior officers.
So where do you? I'm sorry, Sybil, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Yolanda, bring the question up. Shirley Ann Tony Davis on Facebook. How could one wrap a rope around their neck 11 times and a tree 17 times? Just asking.
Yeah.
It's a good question.
It is a good question. And again, we wouldn't assume that that's how a person who did this act himself found themselves. Right. And all the family has always asked for was just a thorough investigation. They're going to allow the facts and the evidence to lead them where it leads. And if this turns out to in fact to be a suicide, then they're just going to allow the evidence to demonstrate that. Right now, we don't have that, and that certainly wasn't what at the time the family began their public outcry concerning the case. The cousin's video that you saw online, they were told that their loved one had been found, committed suicide in their truck stop with no more explanation. They didn't describe how the body was found. They were misled about how the body was found. Apparently, they were told that he was not, in fact, hanging from a tree, but was just near a tree.
And that was the description, yeah.
Yeah, he was certainly hanging from a tree in every sense of the word.
So somebody had to take him down from the tree? The officers had to remove him from the tree?
The officers would have had to remove him from the tree. The medical examiner report discovered scarring around the neck and a broken clavicle. We received the body just today, and we'll be performing an independent medical exam to determine if there were, in fact, any defensive wounds or wounds that gave away that he had, in fact, climbed the tree himself, sat on the branch, and hurled himself down. It's just is the theory under the sheriff's office right now.
No, he didn't.
Yeah. In my youth, I've climbed trees, believe it or not, but I've never been able to do it without anything coming across on my clothing, right?
Right.
That just
and
seems so ridiculous.
When we went there yesterday and spoke with the sheriffs, we asked, Okay, well, obviously, then on his clothing, we would have found evidence that he climbed a tree. And so we asked about the presence of that kind of telltale evidence, and he said the clothes hadn't been tested, which is obviously a problem. And
Yeah.
so they're just little basic steps that this sheriff could have taken besides protecting his image in the media that he felt
Right.
to take. And it's cost
Do
a
you
great.
have hope that we will get a resolve to this, or an accurate resolve? Do you have hope?
Yeah, I have hope. This honestly, and I was talking to Javon McGee's family about this yesterday. It reminds me of the investigation following the death of Botham Shamja. Now, Botham was eating a bowl of ice cream in his apartment complex when Dallas police officer Amber Geiger came into his home and shot him to death. And she said she thought she had entered her own apartment. That day, the Texas Rangers met with Amber Geiger, heard her story about accidentally walking into the wrong apartment, decided that there was no malice in between her actions, and met with me and the family the following day to tell us that once we knew what he knew, that we would understand that this was just a big accident and that Amber Geiger was basically a great person and should not be, held criminally liable for her actions. Thankfully, Amber Geiger was convicted for murder and sent to prison. But that was despite the Texas Rangers' initial investigation. Their investigation was meant to prove that it was manslaughter and just a big accident, no harm, no foul. But Amber Geiger turned out to be not only a violent, brutal, racist police officer who murdered Botham Jean in his own apartment, but the evidence was enough to make her one of the first convictions of someone falling into that category under the color of authority in the history of Dallas.
Can I ask a follow-up to the Botham Jean case? The news has reported that she is available to be, or she could be released as early as this month, September of 2024. Is there any truth to that?
No. Unfortunately, Roy Oliver is able to be released up to this month. Roy Oliver is one of the first convictions that my office was a part of in Dallas County for the murder of Jordan Edwards, 15-year-old Jordan Edwards in 2017.
Driving away from the party with his brothers.
Yeah. And so on Cop Watch, I have Roy Oliver on my bingo cards for folks that will be up for parole. Before that happens, my clients will be contacted and have an opportunity to speak before the parole board in hopes that both Roy Oliver and when it comes around to Amber Geiger, she's not up for parole yet. But when it comes up to see if they serve the entirety of their sentence, if not more.
How do I know these things? In Dallas, this really is unfortunately not an uncommon occurrence where these young people have been innocently killed by, or these innocents have been killed by police. If you could just explain a little bit more about Jordan. He was just doing what his parents asked him to do. If there was something going on at a party, leave. And that's what he and his brothers and friends were doing, right?
That's right. And so this happened, like I said, back in 2017. It was probably shortly after one of the first times that you and I had a chance to meet.
Right.
There was a lot going on in the country at the time. It was, I believe, shortly after the election of Donald Trump. And we were dealing with what they call Trump syndrome, or emboldened racists, emboldened violent police officers who used that election sort of as a call to action of sorts to increase brutality. Jordan was a student in Mesquite High School, just north of Dallas, or just south of Dallas, actually. And he and his brothers went to their first high school party, April of 2017.
On spring break.
On spring break at a local house party. There was no crime going on at the house party. I always point that out. Sybil, you recall when we talked about it. I said, as a young kid, this is a party that I wouldn't have gone to. There wasn't any booze, marijuana, or women. It was just the football team hanging out, having a great time. They got a noise complaint, and Roy Oliver, with his partner, responded to the noise complaint, dismissed the party goers. They heard gunshots in the area as they dismissed the party goers. And so the officers grabbed their high-powered rifles and rushed towards the sound of the gun, which had long since passed. And apparently there was a drive-by shooter who shot a weapon into the air. And they came upon Jordan, who was the passenger of his brother's cars, a 16-year-old, and it had three other teenagers in the backseat of the car, and they just riddled that car with bullets as if that was the car. They knew that that was the car where the shots emitted from. They struck Jordan Edwards in the neck and in the face, and he died. And of course, they blamed Jordan, who was a straight A honor roll student, for being a gang member, for likely having tossed the gun that he used to cause the commotion out of the window. They lied about it on TV. They said that Jordan's car was rushing towards them,
Right.
and in order to save his partner, Roy Oliver stepped in and riddled the car with bullets. The car was not moving towards them. It's on video, moving away from them when he opens fire.
Well, I'm sorry that we met under those circumstances and that our friendship continues along these lines. And I have to ask you about another shooting, and that is the one involving the young man in Kansas City, Ralph Yarl. The little, not little boy, the teenager went to pick up his siblings at a friend's house. He went to the wrong address, and the white man who owned that house, without opening the door, just seeing a shadowy black figure in his doorway, commits to shooting. And luckily, Ralph was wounded but not killed, and it very well could have happened. And I just remember the friendship that you struck up with this young man, and I'm just wondering how he's doing now.
Ralph is starting his first year in college. He was always an amazing, outstanding student, particularly in the area of music, where he plays a number of instruments. And he's pursuing a music degree at a university that we're not disclosing right now for his privacy. But he is scheduled to come to trial and testify against 84-year-old Andrew Lester, who shot him in the face. And you say, luckily, he survived, and that's one way to put it. But it was, in fact, miraculous. Ralph point blank range in the face by Andrew Lester. The bullet entered his cranium, cracked his skull, and disintegrated. It left bullet fragments on his brain. It should have entered his skull and killed him. It just didn't. And there's really no real medical explanation for why it did not. Within 24 hours, after he was shot, by the way, in the face, and he fell to the ground, Andrew Lester stood over him and shot him a second time.
Right, yeah.
Andrew Lester still hasn't stood trial in the United States anywhere for his criminal act. He recently filed a motion that he's not competent to stand trial, and the court is now entertaining that motion. Whether or not he'll ever face criminal liability because of his advanced age. I would point out, of course, that the current Republican nominee for president is about the same age as he is.
Right.
And so his age alone doesn't disqualify him for criminal accountability, of course, again, unless he's Donald Trump. Do you mind if I talk about something else that's probably the most important thing that I'll say that's going on in Kansas City right now?
Well, I hope we're on the same page. Yes.
There was the first conviction of a police officer in the case of Cameron Lamb. We called him CD, a young black mechanic from the Kansas City, Missouri area. A gun was planted on him. He was accused of crimes that he didn't commit, and he was shot to death in his backyard, in his garage. Eric DeVolkiner was caught in his duplicity, covering up the crime, lying about the facts, and he became the first Kansas City police officer to be convicted for the death of a black man in the history of the department. Governor Stitt of Missouri has announced his intention to pardon Eric DeVolkiner for the murder of Cameron Lamb.
Why?
There's no rational explanation to pardon him. There's no additional evidence found. It's a part of a conservative trend in the southern states. Governor Abbott has begun pardoning.
Remember, he did that almost immediately before the last man was sentenced.
We've seen the same out of Florida, and we expected among these states when Donald Trump talks about granting police officers additional immunity beyond the qualified immunity that they already enjoy. This is what he means. It means these officers, even when found guilty by a jury of their peers, even when it's a historical conviction, they're having these convictions simply set aside. And we've seen it in Quadri Sanders in Oklahoma. We've seen it in Sean Monterosa in Northern California. It is a national trend. And unless we speak out about it, unless there's no way that, of course, in 2021, following the George Floyd insurrection of sorts, that this would have been allowed. They've waited a few years, they've given it time, and now conservatives are going back to protect these dangerous, violent police officers, despite the ongoing threat to the Black community. It's problematic, and we all should be raising alarms in defense of the administration that is in place now. When those cases first happened, Donald Trump was in office. I met with Donald Trump, to a lot of people's chagrin, and we talked about the constitutional requirement that the feds come in and investigate some of these cases. Donald Trump, of course, failed to do that, had no intention to do that, although he promised the families that he would. This administration, under the leadership of Kristen Clark, has come in and supplemented federal investigations out of the Department of Justice, and we've seen action take place. This is something that they should stop right now, because they are in executive office right now, and say, we are not going to allow this to happen. And that would, in my opinion, give those communities that are relying on them to change the deadliest police culture in the modern world a chance to say they mean what they say. It's beyond words. I'm afraid that they're not acting for fear of losing moderate voters if they appear too tough on cops. And that is not a concern that we can expect a progressive White House to continue to hold over the sanctity of Black life.
Right. Yeah. That's a great point. And if there's an organization or something that we should know about and be a part of, I'd like to encourage people to stick with us. And so we'll get that information so that we can stay on top of that, because it's frightening what can happen in less than 50 days if people do reelect the
So
former.
I have a quick question before he has to go. First of all, as you know, and you probably have heard, that you are a national treasure. So thank you for the contributions that you're making to our community.
Thank you.
Having said that, what about you? I am interested because Sybil and Coy, they eat this stuff every day. I personally, I can't consume it. And so for you who live it, what do you do for your mental health?
I've learned over the course of my practice to take better control of my mental health. I can tell you some of the things that I did wrong about the time that I met people when I was sleeping in my closet and going through a depression and dealing with constant anxiety because of the phone calls that I was receiving, the cases and the facts that I was seeing. I had to learn to take my own mental health very seriously in order just to be able to continue to serve my clients. I first began to learn about mental health and the impact of trauma really as I watched trauma devour families. One case in particular was Tatiana Jefferson back in 2018. And shortly after Tatiana was brutally murdered in her house by a Fort Worth police officer while playing video games with her nephew, her mother died of a heart attack. The man that she was her father died of a heart attack. Last year, probably more than a year ago, my dear friend Amber Carr and her sister died of a heart attack. Zion, the young man who watched her murdered in front of him, is struggling in school. I knew I couldn't continue to serve these families and just get justice in a sense in the courtroom. But I would watch them die. They wouldn't get to live to see justice unless we began to deal with the very real mental health consequences of police violence and a culture of police brutality. So for me, it means regular therapy. For me, it means I actually have to serve my clients a bit differently. I take all my cases, as you can imagine, very personally. And I had to learn to put up a wall between myself and my clients.
Do you take breaks? Do you take mental health breaks?
I do regularly build in mental health breaks. I've come to separate a lot of my cases, which is my life, from my home. And so my kids can't so quickly rattle off the most recent victim of police violence as they could have.
Awesome. Yes.
And so, attending counseling, creating that separation. But it's a little of both for me. So you might recall the death of Jamel Roberson, a security guard in Chicago, who who had just stopped a mass shooting himself when police came and shot him in the back, thinking he was the shooter that they received phone calls about. Jamel, being a hero, left behind a son named Tristan, and Tristan became my godson. And Tristan and I maintain a relationship. I still have those inappropriate relationships with my clients, but I've learned that it goes beyond just showing up and winning the case, but being there as a resource to our community to learn about particularly Black male mental health. I'm going to
That's
brag.
a big one.
I'm going to brag about something that's related, but it's kind of weird to talk about. I've just gotten over my fear of talking about this, but I'm on a fast right now. I'm on an 18th. This is the 19th day of a total water fast. I haven't eaten food in the month of September.
Oh, wow.
And that's why my lips are so chapped. I'm learning to begin to. I forgot where I brought that up, but I'm learning to begin to center myself and use these other methods to continue to advocate for the families.
I think I told you this before, Lee, when we first met at the studio, and we did a great interview. And I'm going to continue to pray for you and for your mental health, as well as your mental acuity in handling these cases as well as you do. So, and I thank you for your service.
Well, I see you have a puppy. That has to help.
Yeah.
There.
I'll point out next year there'll be a documentary coming out about the work that I've been doing over the past 5 years or so. We're just finishing up production now and shopping it around, and so we're hoping to build that in a series that will continue to allow me to tell some of these family stories. But to my chagrin, they're focusing a lot on me, which I don't.
Well, humility would prevent you from doing that, I'm sure. But everybody needs to know about the great works of Lee Merritt, as well as your Morehouse brother, Sean King. I thank you for all that you do. And please do me a favor on a personal tip. Tell Sean that I asked about him. I've lost his current number, but I do worry about him as well. And I thank you both for the work that you do. And I thank you for your time, as always.
Sean just enjoyed a birthday, so tell him immediately that you said hello, and he will be encouraged to hear from you. So I'm sure he'll appreciate that. So thank you on his behalf.
Thank you. And the doors are always open if you want to come and join us and tell us about anything else that's going on that we need to know about. We appreciate you and your time, as well as your staff. Thanks, Susan, for us as well.
I will. And again, I apologize for being late. I hate to keep you waiting.
This was amazing.
Really was looking forward to being here and having this conversation with you.
Well, we're grateful. So
very grateful. Thank you, my friend.
All right. Take care.
You be well. Thanks. All right, ladies, that was great. That was, oh my gosh.
It's a lot to take in.
And I don't even smoke.
Well, before you go out for a smoke that you don't do as a rule, or anything else, a strong Coke, will you read the jewel for the day?
Yeah. So this week, we're focusing on embracing failure. And so today, Thursday, is embracing failure teaches us to let go of the fear of making mistakes and take bold risks.
Take that risk.
Yep. Isn't that great, Coy?
It's wonderful.
Well, I know you always get it, so thank you.
Thanks for hanging out with us, Coy. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me.
Yeah. Corey, you were really up on that. Very impressive. You are impressive. You are an impressive young woman. I'm very proud of you.
Well, thank you. Pushing me one step closer to considering being an attorney. We'll see.
And you've got great plants too.
I do. I love them. They're amazing. They're doing pretty good. I actually propagated one. Well, you can't really see it, but it's in the window and started another one. So,
well, enjoy homecoming. Have fun with your friends. Go outside and play. Okay.
Thank you.
All right. All right, everyone. I'm going to go watch Oprah and Vice President Kamala Harris have their YouTube session right now. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for watching. And we'll see you next week. Aloha.